Quick greetings. Welcome to another video. I think my viewers know that sovereignty is this Indian's somewhat like a cross to bear. So I just want my videos to, from this point, to really be about a conversation that Indians need to have, I feel, regarding if we are going to be sovereign on our land again, or are we going to be subject to a corporation? The thing that is hard to say is that simply incorporating is giving the corporation, the United States corporation, the upper hand, and it's given them plenary authority over the tribes that have incorporated. And it's just a message that I put out like a public service. I realized this is my personal mission, and it's just something that's on my heart, and it's what the ancestors put on my heart. So I'm going to bear this cross. Unfortunately, those are the terms we are most familiar with, so that's why I use that term. But as well, I am the Christ. I am the Christ that is reborn, and when I awaken to who I am. And so that's, I guess, sort of the poetry of it all. I did decide, though, that although it's a solemn thing, why is it solemn? It's solemn because this is such a crucial time with Indians waking up, that if we take a shortcut and we just want to be known as Indians, but we don't have the control of our land, it's really not much different than being a Black, colored, or Negro. And so that's, from now on, the videos I do, it's for to keep me centered, and hopefully to help Indians understand that they really are being cheated by the corporation. So I feel the ancestors led me to the article we are going to take a look at. This is my second take on the video. I'm back to that thing where, I do a video and I'm not crazy about it. And I want my attitude to be right. There's no need to really be overly emotional. The words speak for themselves. And in this article, the author actually cites cases, So let's jump right in. Try not to be too wasting of time. So let me share my screen. Okay, so I fell in love with this article, and the writer, I feel he nails this. He nails this article. So the name of it is American Indian Sovereignty. Now you see it, now you don't. But I want to start I wanted to start at the part where I think it really gets to the meat and bone. Although the whole thing is good, I really want to start here at federal Indian law, okay? Because it's pretty lengthy, okay? Okay, so again, we're going to read what being under the corporation by virtue of being incorporated, uh, what does it offer us? And I think we'll be surprised, you know, once again, I mean, because I think I've been saying it, but maybe you say it in different ways and it maybe makes a difference. Okay, so without further ado, let me get myself out the way here. Okay, so federal Indian law. Now, let's read. When we enter into the realm of federal Indian law, we need to keep in mind that we are traveling in a semantic world. It's like, you know, uh, sound like, you know, word spells. It's a semantic world created by one group to rule another. We're going to read it again. When we enter into the federal Indian law, this is what we're really getting into when we incorporate, unfortunately. When we enter into the realm of federal Indian law, we need to keep in mind that we are traveling in a semantic world created by one group. Who's that group? It's the British monarchy, right? As well as the Vatican, which is over the British monarch. I caught some of this recent coronation. And what struck me, you see it, but then you realize what you're seeing, and that is the Church of Rome's role in coronating a king. And it was perfect because now I didn't watch the whole thing because I don't have a king. I am the king of America. One of many, if we know that we are supposed to be sovereign. If we don't know that, well, yes, that man is our king. It's his corporation that we are incorporating under. And it's just a fact. Yes, the Pope said what he said about the doctrine of discovery, but you see, the corporation knows that we are ignorant. And so it knows that it can say something and not make a bit of difference when the people, what's the word, perish for lack of knowledge. That's what Colinago, he says that often. And he's right, unfortunately. So the Pope will make that declaration that the doctrine of discovery, oh, that was a bad, bad thing. But nothing happens because what? We don't understand what the corporation is, so we don't act on it. He gets the accolades, he gets love, and he gets respected because he made that statement. But what happens? We get further disrespected because we don't do anything to reclaim what was taken from us. Before the corporation came here, we didn't have to incorporate under the corporation. So if we're doing it now, we are including the colonizer's construct on our land. And he will have the upper hand, as this article will let us know in no uncertain terms. Okay. We need to keep in mind that we are traveling in a semantic world created by one group, and we just said who the group is: territorial and municipal. The British Crown and the Vatican. Now, as a sovereign Indian, I can speak this freely I am not inciting violence. I am talking facts and truth. So, so be it. So it's a semantic world created. See, that's the key word, created. Who created the corporation that made the federal Indian law? It's a crown corporation created by one group to rule another. The terminology of law is a powerful naming process. It's the name game. Name game. In working with this law, we will use the names that it uses, but we will always want to keep in mind that the reality behind the names is what we are struggling over. According to the theory of sovereignty in federal Indian law, tribal peoples have a lesser form. What kind of form? A lesser form of sovereignty. So federal law does not give you full, it can't. It's a foreign entity. It would not be in its best interest to have us wild ass Indians calling the shots on our land mass. We really need to find the road less traveled. If we don't, our children, our children's children, our children's children's children will be nothing more than mere slaves on this land mass forever. This is the awakening. If we settle for less, this will be what we get for at least the next, I don't know how many 100 years. I don't know. Why would we want to deny our birthright to the children of the next generations and think that we're doing them justice? At this point, I'm happy I don't have kids because I don't see any Indians reaching for sovereignty. If we go through the corporation and we feel like it's a process, that's what takes our sovereignty away. We don't have to go through the corporation. If we don't like to farm, we get someone who does. You know, it's that kind of thinking we have to get what was taken from us. If we don't, we never get it back. And this will be the most laughable awakening that has ever occurred on the face of the earth. The Indians woke up, the corporation sold them a bridge, and they remained Negroes, but now called Indians, with the same benefits and privileges that Negroes, coloreds, blacks, and African Americans got. Now the corporation will, spruce up the benefits and privilege to make them look like you're different. But the whole problem with benefits and privileges is that they're not unalienable. They can be taken away at any time just like how they did with the treaties. They're there for a time, but then when the corporation is going to do what it's going to do, out with the treaty. So when they give us a little bit of props because we found out we're Indians, that'll last. I give it a good. How long did a treaty last before it was broken? Whatever that is. It's not permanent. It's something that Congress decides because Congress has plenary authority. They gave themselves, mind you, plenary authority over Indians. How does that work now? It's not one of your enumerated functions. It's function. It's really function. It's function. Uh, it's not one of your enumerated functions, Congress. So how did you give yourself plenary authority over the indigenous American Indians of the land? You have power over them? By what authority? By what lawful authority? Well, Congress would say, you're United States citizens. That's what gives us the authority. You don't want to give up your citizenship. So we have plenary authority over you as an Indian. And then Congress might say, if y'all are too dense to know that, why should we tell you? That's why this time, I realize it's the best of times. Is that the Shakespearean, but it can also be the worst of times if we don't get it right. Corporations are fun, but they were brought here by the foreigner. They're fun for the foreigner, not so much for American Indians because we don't get our birthright back. We don't. When we look at that linguistic map, all of that land is supposed to go back to those Indians that the linguistic map said were there. With the corporation here, that will never happen. Never. Stick you on a reservation. You never go back to your sovereign position, ever. And they put it in their Bible that that's how they intend to keep your birthright. In their Bible, there's a story that justifies stealing a birthright. And they're going to always use that. That's another reason why Indians who feel like they should be Christians, we're just not going to even go there. Your ancestors spinning, spinning, spinning in them graves. According to the theory of sovereignty in federal Indian law, tribal peoples have a lesser form of sovereignty. So who'll have the highest? Congress. Congress. And state nationals. Now, because state nationals, they're not playing the corporate game. They're not playing the corporate game. State nationals are not playing with the corporation. They're not. But if Indians knew some of this process, then Indians would have the upper hand. But right now, state nationals do. I have to say it the way it is. They're not trying to go with anything the corporation is providing, anything. They're doing the work of relearning common law, because that's what's going to, the law of the land. That's what they're going by. So they know that they don't have to go by statutes and codes, okay? According to the theory of sovereignty in federal law, Tribal peoples have a lesser form of sovereignty. That's what we get as a corporation. And state recognition is also a branch of the feds. The state of states that recognizes a tribe, it's just a branch of the feds. That's what Anna's book reveals to us. It's they created a corporate version of the state that's not land soil jurisdiction. So in federal Indian law, first of all, that's oxymoronic. The feds are not supposed to make our laws, okay? They're not. They're not. If we were supposed to be a separate nation, we make our laws. But the truth is, we make the laws for the entire land. Why? Well, when we're in our proper persona, in our proper status, that's what we have. That's the power we have. That's why we're the most discriminated on American soil. To all the other races who are wondering, why does the United States seem to hate on quote unquote Negroes? The United States is threatened not by our criminal or hood rat thugged out ways. This corporation, they're the biggest thugs out, okay? Trust me on that. Think mafia. Mm-hmm. So why would they be threatened by some two-bit thug in the hood? They're not. What they're threatened by is the authority that that Negro has over them. And when I speak, I am standing on my ancestors and I'm standing on my authority as an American Indian. So I don't fear. Why don't I fear? Because I know what's right. When a man knows what is right, he has no reason to fear anything. And I know I'm right. Even if Indians don't know, trying to go by statutes, are you kidding me? Were they around when there was no colonizer here? Okay, so then why are you going by them? Huh? We need to learn what freedom really is. We really do. We're not going to find it as a corporation in this federal construct. It's meant to give them authority over Indians. When I started doing video, this was the ultimate message. I started and I used the book that it came from about birthrights being taken and why it was seen as right for a birthright to be taken. So what I'm saying now is a direct relation to the very first video I ever made. It's about a birthright that this corporation is hell-bent on keeping because they have a book that they feel gives them that right. Well, they use the Catholic Church, the Church of Rome, to do all of this. The Church of Rome told them that if you find a land where these people are not Christian, then you can take them over. And that's why I said Jesus dying on the cross didn't do anything for Indians. It didn't, not in this world. And if they have you reaching for an afterlife, wake up, wake up, wake up. So again, this is a direct relation to the very first video I did. It's just, it's more zoomed in onto the real, actual play out. The theory is in the Church of Rome's book. The play out is through these federal statutes and the creation of the United States citizen. Tribal peoples have a lesser form of sovereignty in federal Indian law. That's what we'll be going by if we're in the corporation. Federal Indian law. They're not going to create a new one, and if they do, it's still going to put us under them. We have to create it. Okay, a lesser form of sovereignty, which is not really sovereignty at all. This man gets it. This man gets it. It's not sovereignty, but dependence. In the words of Chief Justice John Marshall in Cherokee Nation versus Georgia, 1831, this is before the creation of the United States citizen. And I asked myself, what gave them authority at that point to stampede all over us? And I think the treaties. I think somehow just having a treaty gave them authority. Why else would they be? Well, let's read. American Indian societies, though they are nations in the general sense of the word, are not fully sovereign. This is what we get with the corporation. It hasn't changed and it won't. That's why they created this whole construct. They created it, not us. Because if we created it, we'd be on top. We know the place the federal government has, which would be under us. The state nationals know it. And again, if we don't know it, we're going to have two factions over us. The state nationals, because they're going for sovereignty. They're not going for some corporate entity thing. My hope is that American Indians will get on board with real sovereignty so that the state nationals don't become your overlords as well. That's what's going to happen. These people know their rights. They're constitutional. Bill of Rights. Rights. They're not incorporated either. These are just men and women of the land because they don't have to be incorporated when they go by the original Constitution. They can be men and women of the land, they don't have to be recreated into corporation. And furthermore, they have repatriated back to state national. So the question is, what do you mean they repatriated back to state national? Well, I mean, the United States citizen wasn't created when we first won that Revolutionary War and had our Bill of Rights and that Constitution. So what was the status of Americans before the United States citizen was created in 1865, I think it was? We had the Declaration of Independence, what was that, 1770 something, 1776? So we were not citizens, United States citizens at that point. But I think what took the Indians out of their position was, I think, just becoming the two parties, the Republicans and the Democrats or whatever. I think it's when we entered that, because I'm trying to figure out what gave them the authority to have this Cherokee Nation versus Georgia. Now Cherokee was a nation, okay, so they were against state Georgia, not the land soil Georgia, the corporation fictional Georgia. American Indian societies, though they are nations in the general sense of the word, are not fully sovereign, but are domestic, dependent nations. That's how the federal government actually sees us. And that's including with UNDRIP and ADRIP, by the way. Yeah, yeah. That doesn't give us, Congress still has plenary authority. That's what we're going to read here. And these are cases. So these are cases in the United States. The UN is international. So that is not even land soil jurisdiction. That's taken us into the sea of commerce. It's just like a benefit and a privilege. I think we have to look at UNDRIP and ADRIP as a really slick down, well-oiled or well-shined set of benefits and privileges. It's not God-given. They're not looked at as God-given. They're UN-given. And the UN is a corporation. So they are nations in the general, tribes are nations in the general sense of the word, are not fully sovereign. Why would Indians settle for being half sovereign? I'm telling you, the corporation does not define sovereignty the real way sovereignty is defined. The kind of sovereignty that a queen would have, a queen of England. Okay? That's not what Indians get, but they should have on their landmass, unless they want a queen and a pope to call the shots. How have they been doing us so far? A few sermons at St. Patrick's Cathedral. Did that get us Indians back in our sovereign place? When the story of Job is told, when he is forgiven, he gets back everything that was taken from him. And he didn't even have a savior. So when I say that Jesus has done nothing to get Indians back what was taken from them, that is exactly what I mean. I'm not mincing my words. Jesus has given us an apple pie in the sky. Okay. It's just, that's not what he's that his mission wasn't to get us anything that would get us respect in the world we live in. In fact, we're supposed to be hated on because he was hated on, is what we're told. So on top of being quote unquote hated, disrespected, disenfranchised as a quote unquote black, that's, you get that just by virtue of being American Indian in America. Now you have a religion that says you're going to get hated on for following this savior. So you get hate on top of hate. And this is supposed to be normal for you. And you take it as normal. That's why you get what you get. That's why you get treated the way you're treated. Tribal peoples have a lesser form of sovereignty. And when it's less, someone else has more. Who would that someone else be? The corporation? Yes. Which is not really sovereignty at all, but dependence. In the words of Chief Justice John Marshall in Cherokee Nation versus Georgia, 1831, before United States citizenship, American Indian societies, though they are nations in the general sense of the word, are not fully sovereign, but are domestic dependent nations. The shell game of American Indian sovereignty, the now you see it, now you don't quality, started right at the beginning of federal Indian law. So it was made to punk our asses. Federal Indian law, it should be Indian federal if it's going to be at all. They don't make the rules for us, we make it for them when we're in our proper status. The corporation is doing anything it can to make Indians accept an inferior status so that they can continue, not start, continue to dominate that ass. It's going to be a fight, Indians, if we continue to entertain the corporation as our authority. They're not even supposed to be an authority over the state nationals, the Pilgrims. I don't know. Do we have to look at an Anna video to see how she's rolling? How we already did, but apparently, you know, repetition, so on and so forth. Repetition. It's all about repetition. They're not looking to be dominated by the corporation. Again, if the foreigner ain't trying to do it, how the hell do we look as Indians trying to go by corporation and follow that? The shell game of American Indian sovereignty, the now you see it, now you don't, started right at the beginning, the creation of, by who? Who created this? Congress. Right at the beginning of federal Indian law. The foundation of federal Indian law is the assertion by the United States of a special kind of non-sovereign sovereignty. Special. This brother, whoever wrote this, they wasn't playing, and they know what sovereignty really is. And so I was this is what the ancestors do when they see me struggling, you know, they give me something like this that says it better than I can. It started this, now you see it, now you don't sovereignty, started right at the beginning of it. Whenever the federal corporate government creates something, soon after the bullshit begins. So what he just tell us, it all started at the beginning of federal Indian law. It sounded good, right? Of course it does. Of course it does. It didn't end up good. The foundation of federal Indian law is the assertion by the United States, not India, of a special kind of non-sovereign sovereignty. That's all the corporation will ever give us. They don't give sovereignty. We take it based on what? Our birthright. The Bible talks about despising your birthright. And in the Esau story, I didn't see that Esau despised his birthright. I didn't see that. But I do see it with American Indians today, that we despise it by taking it lightly. It is the most important thing. It is why we are being woken up. The ancestors, if they're waking us up for us to be dominated again, they are doing a disservice to us. And I know that they're not. So who's doing the disservice? We're taking the easy way out with the corporation. But our great grand, our descendants will pay dearly, because by that time, the corporation will still be doing what it does, and it will have made us forget completely what true sovereignty is, because we will never have had it. And by that time, they will have done something to tie us in, to prevent us from getting it. Because now the Indians woke up. We have to shut this down forever. We can't have a second Indian awakening. So if they're going to accept this measly, now you see it, now you don't, special sovereignty created by Congress, then we don't have to even pay attention to anything else that they say. They're already our slaves. And they will have you in some kind of contract that will lock you into this bullshit sovereignty. They will have to, because they don't want you to get any more awakened as an Indian. It was crucial when we were colored, but it will be critical once we wake up as Indians for them to really shut it down. We have to make the Indians settle for a sovereignty that will allow the corporation to continue, not start, to continue to dominate that ass. That Indian, okay, Indian ass. They're going to be like, okay, Indian. But as long as you give us plenary authority over you, that means you're not much more than a Negro with a new name. So it started right at the beginning of federal Indian law. I knew that federal Indian law was bullshit, but this brother, he helps to explain it. The foundation of the federal Indian law is the assertion by the United States of a special kind of non-sovereign sovereignty. Yes, I'm reading it over and over again. Over and over. Non-sovereign sovereignty. In 1973, the Federal District Court for the District of Montana stated the underlying principle in the case of United States versus Blackfeet Tribe, 364 Fed Supplement, page 192. The facts were simple. The Blackfeet Business Council, that's the tribe, passed a resolution authorizing gambling on their reservation and the licensing of slot machines. An FBI agent seized 4 machines of the Blackfeet machine. The Blackfeet tribal court, the tribal court, issued an order. Now, this is your court, and you're asserting your authority, but it's not top-notch authority because you're not fully sovereign in the corporation. So let's see what happens when the Blackfeet tribal court issued an order restraining all persons from removing the seized articles from the reservation. So they are saying do not take the slot machines off of the reservation. That's what the tribal Indians are saying. The FBI agent, after consultation with the United States attorney, removed the machines. Now, the chief or the tribe members and the chief, they issued an order restraining all persons from removing the seized articles from the reservation. The FBI, however, after consultation with the United States attorney, removed. He went over the chief's head. That's what they'll do, boo. We will be like puppets in this, like we already are. Nothing will change. I promise you. It'll probably get worse. They will make sure that you are suffering on that reservation. I heard it already from tribes that are, I heard it. They squeeze you out. So the FBI agent, after consultation with the United States attorney, removed the machines from the reservation. A tribal judge then ordered the U.S. attorney to show cause. Why? He should not be cited for contempt of the tribal court. So the tribal court thought that they can make somebody be in contempt of their little tribal court in the corporation. The U.S. attorney applied to federal court for an injunction to block the contempt citation. The Blackfeet tribe argued that it is sovereign, and that the jurisdiction of the tribal court flows directly from this sovereignty. But the federal court said, that's HNIC. When you're in the federal jurisdiction, the feds BIRTHNIC over chiefs and tribe members. But this is what our Indians want for their descendants for the rest of their days on earth. Well, that's why Christianity was given to you, because you ain't getting your shit on earth. Baby, you're going to get it in heaven. That's what they're saying. And you all believe that bullshit. Okay, then don't have no more kids then. Let them stay in heaven with Jesus. Because they ain't getting shit on their landmass. Not a goddamn thing. But some bullshit. They might as well stay in heaven with Jesus. So the federal court said, no doubt, the Indian tribes were at one time sovereign. Yeah. And that's what we're supposed to go back to, Indians. We're not supposed to settle for bullshit at this critical time. What's the point? Who is this serving? Because it's not even serving the leaders of the Indians in the long run. I'm sorry, folks. I have to do the video the way the ancestors have me do it. Truth is a motherfucker, yo. But it's a good motherfucker. I'm just so glad that there are people like this to see for us when we don't have eyes. I'm so glad. So thankful. Because all over the internet, you'll find them championing this bullshit that this writer sees for what it is. But you will hear people like praising this shit like it's the greatest thing to have. This is inferior shit. Huh. So no doubt, the federal court said, the Indian tribes were at one time sovereign, and then the corporation came, is what they should say. And even now, the tribes are sometimes described as being sovereign, sometimes described. The blunt fact, however, is that an Indian tribe is sovereign to the extent that the United States permits. This is what the federal court said. Are you listening? Did you hear that? This is not what the writer is saying. He's giving you the citation. 364 Fed Sup at page 194. The blunt fact, however, is that an Indian tribe in this federal corporation, an incorporated tribe, is sovereign to the extent that the United States permits. That is not sovereignty, Indian. That is your birthright being stolen from you once again. Y'all wondered why HERU is here? This is why. The blunt fact, however, is that an Indian tribe is sovereign to the extent that the United States Congress permits it to be sovereign. Neither more nor less. Direct quote, page 194, Fed Sup, 364 Fed Sup. Get it, read it, and weep. And figure out what kind of sovereignty do we really want. I don't want this bullshit, y'all. I'm telling you right now. I don't want this bullshit. It will be a waste of everything that I've gone through, that we've gone through. The court explained, while for many years, the United States recognized some element, they never recognize, they can't recognize our sovereignty, y'all. That's why they made sure that that Constitution is like toilet paper. They worked that shit good. There's no 14th Amendment in the 1787 Constitution. And there's only 13 colonies in that first Constitution. That's why they don't want to fuck with that Constitution. There's only 13 states, so, you know. But unfortunately, there's different levels to this. So it seems to me that only we Indians that were in these 13 colonies areas are really party to that sovereignty that the Constitution speaks of. The other Indians, from what I understand, they would fall into the other constitutions for territories of the United States and municipalities of, because they were not part of the 13 colonies. This is what I'm seeing, but if someone knows better, feel free. But I'm using, at the time of the first Constitution, and we read it in one of the readings, it only applied to the 13 states of the Union. Well, then we had the Confederate States, but they broke off. And after that, pretty much the United States wasn't the United States anymore because they didn't have any of the South, but they went ahead and redesigned the, what did they do? I think the way it's explained is that it wasn't a constitutional Congress that they had once the South was not part. When the South walked out, that was it. But they reincorporated, I believe, and went on as if nothing ever happened, and then proceeded to occupy the southern states to basically squeeze them out. There were military all around all the southern states, and they could not get access to the ports. This is what the North did. They put the military. So, in other words, the South, they were more or less forced to surrender because they were militarily occupied by this fucking corporation. No doubt, the Indian tribes were at one time sovereign. What made them stop being sovereign? Well, they were reclassified, right? They were promised something for not being Indians. But the corporation knew it had to get them out of being Indians so they wouldn't have a voice as the first people of the land. What empowered them to do that? Scripture. They were looking at us. The reason why they were able to do this to us is because according to their holy scriptures, we were being punished for turning away from God. Now, mind you, we never were Christians, but according to the Christians, we turned away from their God. We never knew your God. So how can we turn away from him? But that's what the doctrine of discovery is all about, boo. You're a sinner. And because you're a sinner, the church gets to sick these nobility on you, and the nobility takes the land for the church, basically. Is what it's appearing to be. The church is head of all, the Church of Rome is head of all corporations. So say King Charles or King James, I should say, has the East Indian Company. Who's really in charge of it? Pope. He's head of all corporations. So where did the corporation come from? Apparently from the church. If they have this big ownership, it's because they created it. And they pass it down to their offspring, which is the nobility, the mulatto nobility. Actually, the churches, pretty much the Moors put white faces in the seats of power in the church. Okay. While for many years the United States recognized some elements of sovereignty in the Indian tribes and dealt with them by treaty, Congress, by act of March 3rd, 1871, now that's after the creation of the United States citizen, 16th statutes at large, I believe, 566, 25 USC, United States Code, Section 71, prohibited the further recognition of Indian tribes as independent nations. So there's the act of Congress, because they have plenary authority over Indians. So they prohibited the further recognition of Indian tribes as independent nations. So Indians, you didn't get a say in that, did you? That's what you will get when you stay in the corporation. They're not going to give you, look, they're going to give you some benefits and privilege that's going to really, like an introductory little package, like what the cable company gives you, like 2 years of cable for $49 or less. I had somebody offer me cable for $16, I think, for 2 years. I turned it down. I don't want any bullshit. Whether it's a cable company or a corporation giving me privileges and benefits and privileges that I know they're going to snatch away after a certain time. That's what they did with the treaty. They created that treaty. It wasn't Indians that created a treaty, because that's why they were able to break it. That's the logic. That's why they were able to break those treaties. Okay. So Congress prohibited the further recognition of Indian tribes as independent nations. Why did Congress do that, Indians? Why do you think? We got to talk it out, right? So we'll know what their goals are. They've been clear about it for years now, like 100 years or something. And they're just waiting for us to give them the go ahead to continue doing that because we don't want to farm or we would rather get benefits or whatever, we could get someone else to farm for us. No doubt. Okay, we read that already. Okay. Indian tribes. Congress prohibited the further recognition of Indian tribes as independent nations. Thereafter, the Indians and the Indian tribes were regulated by acts of Congress, not by the tribes, by acts of Congress. That's what tribes were. They were regulated. How do you come on my land and regulate me? This is why Indians have to decide what they want. Now, I think we think that all we have to do is run for office. Not as a United States citizen, it's not going to make a difference. A United States citizen is a debt slave. So they won't have the standing to change anything that the federal government is doing. They are a debtor, not a creditor. Now, the people that are in Congress, they are more like your creditor, working for your municipal, territorial, working for the Vatican and the British throne. So you won't, if we get into those seats, we would have to do it not as this kind of Indian, because this kind of Indian doesn't have any authority. It would have to be as a First Nation Indian or First People Indian that is not federally created in any way, shape, fashion, form, that is not funded by the federal corporation in any way, shape, fashion, or form. What does this mean, Indian? It means that we become landlords, and that's how we get our money. And the sale of our goods, our, what we have, our farming, whatever. That's how we do it. But we would be landlords, and we could get this corporation to pay us for being on our land. But they shouldn't be here. That's the other thing I'm grappling with. It's like the mind automatically thinks in terms of, oh, well, they're going to be here forever. Not necessarily. I'm a peaceful, loving, sovereign Indian, American Indian, and I stand on my birthright right to have a say on what I want to see in my country. That's the kind of authority we have, Indian. But if we are a little offshoot or branch off or jump off, knock off of the federal system, we don't have that authority. They'll do what Congress is doing now. The power of Congress to govern by statute rather than treaty has been sustained. So they don't have to go by any treaty. They'll create statutes. And who creates those statutes? Congress, not you. It has been sustained. That's the way, if you're in their system. Congress is supreme. How do you come on my land and you become a supreme and I don't? United States, now they're giving you, they're citing these, okay? I'm not reading all the citations. but in United States versus Kagama, 118 U.S. 375, that's what said that the power of Congress to govern by statute rather than a treaty has been sustained. That power is a plenary power. Read Matter of Heft, 197, United States, U.S. Supreme Court, 488. U.S. Reporter, 20, there's the citation. And in its exercise, okay, the power of plenary power am I missing something? And in its exercise, Congress is supreme. So Congress is supreme in plenary power. United States versus Knights, 2241 U.S. 591. It follows that any tribal ordinance permitting or purporting to permit what Congress forbids is void. So Congress has the power to void anything we do on our tribal reservation. Congress has the authority, not the tribe. And that's what we are going to settle for if we don't demand to be left alone and supported in this journey. Okay. It follows that any tribal ordinance permitting or purporting to permit what Congress forbids is void. It is beyond the power of the tribe to in any way regulate, limit, or restrict a federal law officer in the performance of his duties. So a federal law officer can come in and do whatever he wants. It is beyond the power of the tribe to in any way regulate. And the tribe having no such power, the tribal court can have none either. So if the tribe don't have that power, you know the court don't have it, is what he's saying. The fundamental premise of American Indian sovereignty, as defined in federal Indian law, is that it is not sovereignty. He just cut to the chase. Federal power truncates tribal authority. Federal power truncates tribal sovereignty. Federal power truncates. So it limits tribal sovereignty in myriad ways, too numerous to list here. They dominate or truncate, tribal sovereignty in a myriad of ways, too numerous to list here. Federal Indian law is perhaps the most complex area of the United States law, including tax laws, which are said to be complicated, but federal Indian law is even more complicated than that because it's bullshit. In civil and criminal law, both the range and scope of tribal sovereignty is fragmented into overlapping and contradictory rules premised on one foundation, the plenary power of the United States. That such plenary power is nowhere stated in the U.S. Constitution, is no more than a small nuisance to the judges who have declared its existence. So that such plenary power that Congress has over Indians is nowhere stated in the U.S. Constitution, is no more than a small nuisance. The judges don't care. It's just a small nuisance to the judges who have declared its existence. They declared the existence of plenary power, although it's not in the Constitution. Administrative agencies and Congress alike grasp firmly to their judicially created prerogatives of total power over their wards. So we're not even Indians again, we're wards in whose trust they do act as they see fit. Administrative agencies and Congress alike grasp firmly to their judicially created prerogatives of total power over their wards. Total power, not over Indians, but what did he just say? Wards, in whose trust they act as they see fit. Federal Indian law is a continuation of colonialism. So if we partake in it, we're still being colonized, is what he's saying. On the basis of a non-sovereign tribal sovereignty, the United States has built an entire apparatus for dispossessing indigenous peoples of their lands. Or all, I'm sorry. The United States has built an entire apparatus for dispossessing indigenous peoples of their lands, their social organizations, and their original. We have to go back to our original sovereignty, family. Do we understand that? Can I get a rah? Can I get a rah on that? Federal Indian law is a continuation of colonialism on the basis of a non-sovereign tribal sovereignty. A non-sovereign tribal sovereignty. The United States has built an entire apparatus for the dispossessing indigenous peoples of their land, their social organizations, and their original powers of self-determination. The concept of American Indian sovereignty is useful to the United States because it denies indigenous power in the name of indigenous sovereignty. I think we're going to end there because I want to give this article more energy, and I'm sort of a little bit out of energy. I got in late today. It's like 5 in the morning. So we're going to continue this. It's a rather lengthy article, but it helps us to narrow down what kind of sovereignty we need. Do we need it from the government? This article, even the little bit we read, it's a clear no. And he cited cases. Get the cases. Get the cases. There's a few of them. So please take a screenshot of this page, or take it while we speak. I'm about to check out of here, but I had to start this train rolling about sovereignty. So please pause, or you have had time to pause, and I'm going to now stop my screen share. We're going to get back to this, and we're going to start with, in 1831, the Cherokee Nation sued the state of Georgia in the Supreme Court to protect Cherokee lands. The court denied the Cherokee suit on the ground that an Indian nation is not a foreign nation entitled to sue a state in the Supreme Court. That decision has never been overruled. They're not playing with us once we play ball with them. And we got to step into our highest authority to tell them where to go and how to get there. But when we come in as a corporation, playing their corporate games, this is what we get. Whatever Congress decides to give us. And then they take it away. So I thank you for watching. I don't want to start snoring on you. So look at me. I look hella tired. I was out a little late. So I'm going and I look, you know, like I'm about to. Okay. Um, Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this segment. We will pick it up again because baby, it's all about sovereignty from now on. We're gonna get this word. It's gonna go out there somewhere. I don't know who's gonna catch it, but I know I have to put it out there. And it's helping me to be more convicted in you know myself, and I hope it helps Indians because I'm telling y'all, no one is talking this. No one's talking this that I've seen. If they do, it's very quick, and then it's about being a United States citizen, which is a debt slave. The debt is way too high right now to be a citizen. Like maybe I would say if you must be a United States citizen, at least do it when the debt was not as big as it was. Who paid off the debt? One of the presidents paid off the debt, and Britain made sure that that debt got reestablished. But I forgot which president it was. Now that would be a time to be the United States because you might have access. You know, you won't have that debt on your back, and so you won't be a debtor. But as a debtor, you got to look at how a corporation looks at a debtor to understand the power you don't have. So every United States citizen right now is under a debt that is at an all-time high. And the funny thing is state nationals say that that debt is bogus. But for the United States citizen, they cannot question it. A state national can question it because they're not United States citizens. A United States citizen cannot question even a bogus debt. That's why they want you to be a United States citizen. And when we as Indians insist on being it, I don't think we understand. You know, I don't know. I just don't know. Uh, but anyway, since I'm about to fall asleep, let me log off. This scene I'm watching in this on the TV screen is rather anyway. Thank you for watching. I wish you peace, blessings, joy, wealth, health, your land back, your true sovereignty back, not this bullshit, and all the good things. Uh, Thank you again for watching. I think I'm going to revisit it. We're going to continue reading this, I think, later today. So stay tuned, and thank you so much again. I send you peace and blessing.